Welcome to Colts Blue Zone Podcast. Matt Adams here with a game recap for the Colts in their 31-25 overtime thrilling win against the Atlanta Falcons. And this was one that the Colts needed really, really badly after last week's performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh game kind of upset the apple cart with the direction that this team was heading, and they needed a get-right game. Now, when evaluating the schedule and going into the bye, I thought the Colts would beat the Steelers, and then that maybe this would be a little bit of a trap game for them as they head out to Berlin, unfamiliar territory. Some of these European games have been a little bit of a slog if you've watched any of the other teams play in some of these. And then, they're looking forward to the bye week. And then on top of that, we found out Friday DeForest Buckner wasn't going to play. In fact, he's going to be out for at least 4 weeks with a neck injury, and we're not sure if he's going to be able to come back and play this season. So, after the Pittsburgh Steelers lost, that dropped the Colts down to 7-2, and you were kind of thinking that they needed it to get right and make good on this game against the Atlanta Falcons. And early returns were mixed, to say the least. I mean, the Colts did all right to start the game, but mistakes just kind of piled up. Like, their first drive, they went ahead and they took the ball on the opening coin flip, and then they proceeded to go down the field and elected not to kick a field goal. And so that was the decision that Shane Stiken made. They were not able to convert it, even though they've converted a number of fourth down situations this week. They were unable to get points out of that one, but the defense bailed them out. Cannon Bynum comes around on the blind side on Michael Penix Jr. and knocks the ball loose. Jermaine Pratt picks it up. Colts recover, and then they're able to go and score to get the opening score of the game for this one. So, it was not the best of starts for the Colts, but, it doesn't really matter so much how you start. It is how you finish. And for the Colts, they finished this one well enough, right? Not the most beautiful game that you were ever going to see. Colts, with some mistakes, a lot of mistakes. Now, I think that's probably the most alarming thing for me is that this team had played relatively clean over the first few weeks of the season, and that's not a pace you're going to maintain forever. I think we all understand that the kind of historic start the Colts got on offense in terms of turnovers and sacks was not necessarily something that was typical, right? And could they sustain it? Well, maybe not, but it caused some consternation last week with the Pittsburgh game, just to say the least, because they played so clean. They kept the quarterback clean. They kept Daniel Jones clean for the most part, not getting sacked a lot, and clean pockets meant big plays and that sort of thing. And then they were run the ball on top of that, obviously, on the offensive side of things. Well, Pittsburgh game kind of changed that. Quite a lot of pressures, a lot of sacks in that game, and that led to some mistakes. 6 of them, in fact. 5 of them on the offensive side of the ball, 1 on special teams. And, we saw some of those issues return this week against the Falcons. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But first, really, I mean, you got to say it. You got to talk about Jonathan Taylor. Like, I've talked about this in the podcast before about the MVP award for the league and how it's really a quarterback award. It's the best quarterback award and not the most valuable player. You cannot tell me on any day of the week that Jonathan Taylor is not the most valuable player for any team in the league other than the Indianapolis Colts right now. 32 carries, 244 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground for Taylor, including an 83-yarder with, where he shows his vision, his patience, his speed, and his strength all in one fell swoop there. Also caught some passes, 3 catches for 42 yards, long of 24 there for him on 3 targets for Taylor. And my goodness, when things came down and the Colts needed yardage, Taylor gave it to him, and they just rode him all the way to the win there in this game. And that overtime period was kind of ridiculous, really, for the Colts, just as to how, effective they were on that last drive. They were able to get a sack of Penix that led the Colts to get in the ball. That meant a score would win it for them. And aside from a beautiful pass from Daniel Jones to Tyler Warren, it was an all Jonathan Taylor type of day, all type of drive for him, just running off big chunks of yards against the Falcons, and they were just powerless to stop them there at the end of the game. And that is what you want to see if you're the Colts fan. He goes in from 8 yards out, gets the touchdown, and the Colts win 31-25. Now, again, this was a game the Colts could have easily lost. It's funny how football is and how sports are in general. This is a game that the Colts could have lost because of turnovers and mistakes and a lot of penalties and that sort of thing. But it's also one that they could have won by a couple of scores if they had cleaned up some of those issues. But at the end of the day, it's a win, and they are again atop the AFC South at 8-2. Mail your flowers to the Houston Texans with a backup quarterback. Need a 19-point fourth quarter comeback to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that gives Indy a little bit more separation from Jacksonville for now. Of course, they've got two divisional games against each of those teams coming on the back half of the schedule after the bye. Now let's talk a little bit about Daniel Jones. And it was kind of an up and down day for Jones. And also I will say, anyone who doubts the toughness of this guy should just go somewhere else and go talk to somebody else, because Jones, he looked like the Joker at one point in the game because he'd gotten a bloody lip at some point. But boy, he got sacked 7 times. He had 3 fumbles, lost 1 of them, and he threw an interception as well, and was just kind of under pressure all day today. But the numbers, for the most part, look good for Jones. And, numbers are kind of lies sometimes. But, he played well enough, right? He completed 70% of his passes again, more than 70% of his passes, 255 yards, had a touchdown. He had the interception. He was sacked 7 times. The big difference for me in this game is Jones was not afraid to tuck it and run sometimes. 7 carries for 53 yards, none more important than a 19-yard scramble on a 3rd and 21 play on the drive that led to the game-tying field goal there at the end of regulation, or near the end of regulation, I should say. And Daniel Jones, tough as nails in this one. I'd like to see a little bit better ball security. I think we all would acknowledge that. But again, under pressure all day, you're gonna make some mistakes. You're gonna cough some stuff up, and hopefully the Colts can kind of clean that up, because that's something that we've only really seen the last couple of weeks. Yeah, the guys get some pressure on Jones in the previous weeks of the season, but for them to get home as much as they have in the last couple of games is pretty alarming. But you know what? I can sit here and I can talk about football all day. Let us hear from sort of the dual heroes of this game for the Colts, Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones.
It's hard to describe. I mean, like you mentioned all 3 phases of the game. That's what it took. It's a very good team over there, a very tough team. And we knew that coming into the game. And then, of course, as the game unfolds, you just realize how much you have to depend on each other. Like you said, offense, defense, special teams. And I think that's what we did. It was a 3-phase, full effort. And that's the kind of games you live for. Those are the kind of games that you remember and you look back on and you're like, man, we really came together that day. Yeah, I've had the opportunity before, and it's really just a mindset of understanding the situation, understanding what it's going to take to win the game. And then, of course, if you get that opportunity, you get that one-on-one, can you make a play while still handling the fundamentals and technique? And when you see that opportunity, you got to seize it. What do you mean? No, I just didn't know if you seen something that looked off. Really, just they actually did a great job of penetrating all of the gaps. But I just know that my guys on the edge, Pitt, Alec, when I bounce to the outside, there's no lack of trust. It's just hit the edge full speed, because I know once they see me spring to the outside, they're going to turn around, find some work. And I think when you have that type of trust with the guys on the edge, you get those special runs like that. That they're who make it go. I mean, not only Edge, of course, I know he had the record, but you just think about the guys who we've had in this organization beforehand. And to be named amongst those legends, it means a lot. I don't take it for granted, but I also understand how those guys got there and how I got there. And it's the guys around you. It's the guys around you that support you. Like I mentioned, the guys on the edge, also the tight ends, the O-line. It's those guys who put you into that category. So I appreciate my teammates so much, and it means a lot.
Yeah, no, definitely doesn't get old. Seeing 80-yarders, 50-yarders, 60 yards. I mean, we've had a number of those this year, and I can tell you for sure it doesn't get old.
Congratulations on the win. Can you talk to me that 3rd and 20, that big scramble you had at the end of the game? What your thought process and what you saw that play?
Yeah, trying to take a shot there. Obviously, we're in a tough spot. You don't want to take sacks. They're in 2-minute situations, so that's something certainly I can look to correct. But at that point, it's just trying to make a play. They got a lot of depth and expecting us to take a shot, so stepped up and found some space. Try to get upfield.
Usain Bolt once said that Berlin is the perfect place to break records. You made franchise history today. Give us your emotions that you does this in this historic place here.
It was very humbling. Like you mentioned, this is a historic place, and if you look back at the history, the guys who've achieved amazing feats here is no slouch. So to kind of be a part of that, it makes me feel like I'm a part of that lineage. And like I said, I'm just so appreciative. I'm humbled to just have a small piece of history here. I hope that all of the residents of Berlin enjoyed the first ever NFL game here. I hope that we put a good product on the field, and just to be able to spread our love for the game.
Daniel, what does it mean that Tyler's put in all this work to be able to deliver in moments like that?
Yeah, I mean, huge. He had some big time plays and situations that weren't perfect. Not exactly how you draw them up, and that's kind of been something we've said since he stepped on the field. It's not always perfect. It's not what you expect or what you talk about in the film room all the time, but somehow he makes a play and makes it happen, and you saw that several times today in critical moments. I think it was my lip and inside inside of my mouth. But
No, I'm just like, sometimes the way the helmet, you hit the ground, the way the helmet just goes different places, you get all types of stuff. You're like, man, I don't understand it.
Daniel, there were some inconsistencies in the last 2 weeks, right? You had a lot of yards, but maybe some little hiccups that you got to fix. To win in spite of those, what does that tell you?
We got a good football team. We got a really good running back, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, I think across the board, when you look at a lot of those things today, we hurt ourselves in some key spots that we can't afford to do, and that's on me. I got to clean those up and make sure I'm protecting the ball, make sure we're converting in situations where we need to, especially down the red zone. So, obviously we'll look to correct that, but the fact we were able to win anyway and to, battle through a number of those situations, I think says a lot about our team. It says a lot about our, kind of fight, our mental, stamina, mental toughness as well.
Daniel, in a game like that where everything on the line, the defensive line and it's back and forth, how do you as a quarterback compose and reset between plays to make sure you're at your best and help the team get the win?
Well, first, I mean, you mentioned the defense. I thought they played great today. A number of big time stops. The turnover early in the game, was huge for us, and they played a really good game. But I think for me, it's just kind of treating that one single play like it has a life of its own, and making that play right, doing the right thing on that play, and then moving to the next one, kind of regardless of what's happened before that or what's ahead or where the game's going. So I think you try to be as in the moment as you can on that single one play.
JT, this game reminded me of 2018 against Purdue, the triple overtime. Obviously, it's historic for you. Any flashbacks in the moment when this went to overtime and how you performed?
Yeah, when earlier when they mentioned if I had an opportunity to have a walk-off, that was another one that came to mind, and that was another situation where you understand what it takes to win the game. A field goal will win it, but then if you get that one-on-one opportunity, it's take advantage of it, seize it, and you live for those moments. You don't know when those moments come, but you remember not even the run. You remember your teammates embracing you after that play. So I think that's what I'm going to remember the most, and I'm just glad I was able to do it here in Berlin.
That was Jonathan Taylor and Daniel Jones talking about the Colts and their 31-25 overtime win against the Atlanta Falcons over in Berlin. It was technically a home game for the Colts. They lost one of their home games at Lucas Oil Stadium to go and play overseas for this one, and the Falcons were the visiting team, which caused a little bit of problems, mix up at the beginning of overtime. They gave Zaire Franklin the chance to call the toss, but the Falcons were the away team, and they should have been calling the toss. They got it. They got it all figured out anyway. But really, for the most part, the Colts did what they needed to do, and ultimately that was win the football game. 8-2 is their record. They are tied atop the AFC standings right now with the Broncos and the Patriots. They do own tiebreakers currently, based, I believe, on conference record, then head-to-head with the Broncos. And you can see that that AFC is kind of muddled a little bit right now. But with after those three teams, it gets kind of wonky. You've got the Chargers in there; they've got a good record at 7-3, but they're not the division leaders, so they're a wild card team right now. And then you see Jacksonville down there at 5-4, the Chiefs down there at 5-4, and then kind of creeping up back into things. The Houston Texans and the Baltimore Ravens. So if you followed the AFC, you know that those teams are kind of thought to be in the mix. And if the Ravens get healthy, they fix some of their defensive issues, it looks like, they're going to kind of make a run at thing. Now, for the Colts on offense, um, Alec Pierce and Tyler Warren were really the fuel this week for the Colts, as they often are. Warren with 8 receptions for 99 yards, Pierce with 4 catches for 84, including a gorgeous catch on a gorgeous throw. Just kind of throw it up there for Pierce. It's right on the money. Pierce goes up and gets it in the end zone, and that gets the Colts a score. Just the big plays do keep coming for Indianapolis. And then Warren, just a beast out there. Obviously Taylor gets the game ball on this one, but on the season and on the season, he would get the game ball as well. But you cannot talk about Tyler Warren enough and kind of his contributions to this football team. A couple of key catches down the stretch on the drive where the Colts needed a fourth down conversion to get the game tying field goal. He reels that one in. And then Jones just threw a beautiful ball to Tyler Warren on the game-winning drive that went for 20 plus yards and allowed them to set up Jonathan Taylor for his, winning scores. Is the last few plays for the Colts. Let's see, the 5 last plays for the Colts were all Jonathan Taylor runs. As a matter of fact, the only play that was not a Jonathan Taylor run in that overtime period was the 23-yard pass to Tyler Warren, and it was a beautiful throw from Jones. And it was a great catch. Kind of had to go up and get a little bit over the shoulder. And you just can't teach that stuff, man. Also want to talk a little bit about the Colts defense. The Falcons ran the ball a little bit. I don't think there's any question about that. But the defense played, it did enough. I think it's kind of like against Pittsburgh. They kind of hung in there. Like Pittsburgh could have hung 45 points on the Colts last week, but the defense hung in there, hung to some field goals, got some stops, that sort of thing. Similar deal here this week. Probably made a little bit more impressive this week by the fact that they did not have DeForest Buckner in there, and they're not going to have him for a few weeks, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show. But they got some sacks in some key situations, including the one in overtime by Zaire Franklin when he got to Penix, and that forced the Falcons to punt, and that was essentially decided the game there. And then after the failed attempt to convert the fourth down on their first possession, the defense came right around for the Colts and got the turnover from Penix, and then that allowed the Colts to play from ahead for a little bit of this game. Now, so I think the defense is doing enough. They have been very opportunistic, and I felt like Penix was under pressure for a fair amount today, and they're only credited with 3 sacks. I think it was Bynum and Nick Cross and Zaire Franklin were credited with the sacks for the Colts. So you didn't see Buckner get in the backfield, obviously, because he didn't play in the game. Nothing from, Latu or those guys. But they really felt like they were putting a lot of pressure on Penix this week. And they had trouble with, guarding Drake London. But, who doesn't? He had a solid game. Pretty decent evaluation for Sauce Gardner. They pretty much threw him right in the mix there. He did a lot of different things in this game, had a couple little slips and that sort of thing. Almost had a pick 6, broke on a ball late that was coming there on the sidelines and just kind of went right off his chest. So, I think that trade will play big dividends, especially when Mooney Ward comes back for the Colts. But they are going to miss Buckner in the middle of that defense. And then probably the only other real negative, let's talk special teams, because there's both positive and negative with special teams. Let's start with the positives, because those are more fun to talk about anyway. The positives were they got a really nice punt return from Josh Downs, and then they got 2 really nice kickoff returns from Ashton Dulin and Amir Abdullah that really just kind of set things up for the Colts. And it's funny because those kind of came in the second half, because they had a couple nice little returns in the first half as well, but they kept getting whistled they kept getting flagged. It seemed like every time there was a special teams play, like a return, you were seeing a flag for a hold or a bad block or something along those lines. But they cleaned those things up, and those paid dividends down the road and set up the Colts in some pretty good situations. The other negative probably was Michael Badgley. I just complimented him because against Pittsburgh, you get a couple of 50-plus yarders, and then in this game, miss an extra point, and that extra point was key because it upsets everything on the score and how that score outlays and what you have to do in order to tie up the game and make the game even and get it within, a field goal or a touchdown or what have you. When you miss extra points, they really can't add up. And they missed a 50-plus yarder this week. It didn't really seem like it had too much of a chance. But to his credit, you know what? Hit some more stuff. He hit the 44-yarder near the end of regulation to tie things up for the Colts. So that sent the game to overtime and allowed Indianapolis to win. So even with some minuses, you've got some pluses in there. But the 53-yarder, it's one of those things. It would have been nice to hit that. And at that point in the game, it would have been great. You want to have points anytime you can get them, especially when it doesn't look like you're going to get points. But the extra points, man, I think that's his second one that he's missed since he's come and played for the Colts in relief for Schrader. And you just don't want to see that. But, again, the result still speaks for itself. Colts 31, Atlanta Falcons 25. Let's hear from head coach Shane Stiken.
Overall, just a phenomenal game. Some back and forth, a gritty win by our guys. Obviously, getting it to overtime there and finding a way. And congrats to JT setting the all-time franchise record for rushing touchdowns. Just a phenomenal game by him and our offensive line protecting. I thought it was phenomenal. Our guys battled like crazy, and just a hell of an experience over here playing this football game. Well, I didn't run out of stuff in there. I mean, setting a franchise record for rushing touchdowns is pretty impressive. Obviously, in year 6, doing that in year 6 is phenomenal. The way he's been running, I think we had 323 yards on the ground. So credit to the guys up front. Credit to him the way he ran. He ran hard all day. Yeah, he was humming pretty good. Obviously, we popped a big one there in the fourth quarter. It was kind of just mashed up in there, and he bounced it to the left and hit it down the sidelines. That was a huge run that kind of got some good momentum, good juice going for us there. And then, obviously, our special teams did a hell of a job returning, too, getting good field position there for us offensively to put us in position to, go score some points. Oh, we were just trying to get around the edge right there. Tried to just block him down and try to get around the edge.
He's getting hot, obviously. You hit the 83 yard, but at what point did you sense like he was getting to that point?
I think in third quarter, starting of it, I thought, we were really close on some runs there. And then obviously we popped that one. And then finally, there in overtime too was good right there at the end. Obviously the huge catch by Tyler, getting us there, in the fringe of field goal range right there. And then, we started rolling and our guys were blocking well. Yeah, you can feel that. You can feel it on the sidelines, calling the game when guys are rolling. He was rolling. Our O-line was rolling, blocking. And so we just stayed with it. Yeah, it was huge. Obviously, they were in big people, and, there were some small spaces to get through, and our guys created some good spaces there at the end. So just a hell of a team effort by everybody. It was a huge, huge win, obviously, the way, it ended there. Yeah, he had a big game as well. Obviously, that one there in overtime was the biggest one. But, you know, he's just got great feel and ability and space, and his physicality, run after catch was phenomenal for us. Yeah, phenomenal. He played lights out for us. Obviously, getting those sacks there, the tackles in the backfield. We knew Bijan was a hell of a runner going into this game, and just trying to contain him as best we could. So I thought, I think we did a pretty good job there, and also, Zaire obviously getting the big time play there at the end was huge.
Back against the wall with the 3rd and 21 where Daniel takes off and runs. What do you kind of see on that play?
Yeah, we're just trying to get some of it. You know what I mean? Obviously, it's a long distance there, and obviously took off and ran, got some yards there, which was big for us.
Coach, a win like that goes a long way, especially for momentum when you're going into a bye week. What does that say about the team, the grit, the determination, the culture about this team winning that way?
Yeah, you can see. I've said this from the start. I mean, even when we went back to spring and training camp, you could feel the vibes. The guys were fired up. The camaraderie's been huge for us, and it's continued on. And to win close games like this, I think it says a lot about our football team and where we're at from a collective unit. So finding ways to win at the end are huge in this league. A lot of these games come down to just what happened today. So to find a way to win there was big for our football team.
Two more.
It was pretty loud. I know you guys like to sing. It's pretty loud when those voices come out, and it was fun though. Just a phenomenal atmosphere. For us to come over here and have the honor and the privilege to play here in front of these fans in such a historic stadium was just awesome.
Last one.
During the games where maybe there were a couple of chances to score and get maybe a bit ahead, but there were a couple of turnovers. What do you say to the team on those situations to keep them in the game?
Yeah, I think in those situations, obviously you want to get those things cleaned up. You never want those to happen in a football game, but you got to learn from those and bounce back, and I thought our guys did. I mean, we went through some adversity there in that game, but we just kept fighting and kept swinging the whole way, so it was great to finish the game.
That was head coach Shane Stiken talking about the overtime win in Berlin against the Atlanta Falcons. And the Colts, again, set up in really nice position right now for the AFC South. I think, unless things completely submarine on this team, they should be in good shape to win the division and get a playoff berth. They do get a week now to kind of rest and heal up, and maybe Sauce Gardner can get a little bit more acquainted with the playbook for the Colts after his whirlwind week of being traded from the Jets to Indianapolis. But, it's what you want to see. 8-2, one of the best teams in the league right now. And even though they made plenty of mistakes, there were some procedural penalties. There were the special teams penalties that got them in some bad field position on a few occasions. But the Colts were able to overcome those mistakes. They were able to make big plays when they needed to. They were able to make clutch plays when they needed to. And again, that last drive before the end of regulation where they got the game-tying field goal, things looked bleak. It was a 3rd and 21 situation. But Jones shows his mettle, man. He just really tough, got that 19-yard scramble that set up 4th and short. He's able to convert a pass to Tyler Warren, a tough catch for him, get that extra yardage, get that first down, and then able to convert the field goal in order to send this game into overtime, in which they were able to get the game-winning score, riding Jonathan Taylor along the way. If you don't believe that Jonathan Taylor is just the best running back in football right now, I just don't know what to tell you. He shows it week in and week out. I know the Pittsburgh game was rough for him, but my goodness, the 83-yard run and then just clobbering the Falcons, him and the offensive line just clobbering the Falcons on that overtime drive in order to win this game and get that final score to make it 31-25. So that'll do it for this edition of the Colts Blue Zone podcast. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll take a bye week on our preview show since there's no game to preview with the Colts on the bye week. But if there's some team news, those types of things, then perhaps we will congregate on Thursday and bring you the latest. So for now, for Dave Griffiths, for Mike Chappell, I'm Matt Adams for the Colts Blue Zone podcast. Thank you for watching and for listening.